WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I'm in Ireland, and this is fairly rare. This is Dingle. This is Founding's Fathers. This is cask number 227, Old Cannon cask strength, 59.8%. Bourbon maturation. Yay. I bought this at www.irishmalts.com, a newer site. Up until now, I've been working a lot with Celtic Whiskey Shop. Expensive, especially in sending the whiskey over here to Germany. And Irish Malt has a much more humane price for postage and handling, also to the States as well as over here to mainland Europe. So 156 euros translate into 169 euros here for postage and handling, so 13 euros on top, less than 10%. In my book, good job. So what happened was about 5 years ago, one of the founding fathers, I'll read on the back, it says, founding fathers are one of the few. These founding fathers invested in a people, a place, and a distillery. Through their shared vision with the Dingle whiskey distillery forefathers, something special has been created. So what they did actually is they bought a cask. This gave them funding from the beginning, and that's actually very, very important for a distillery to have some cash flow. So I invest 5,000 euros, maybe 3,800 euros in a cask at the beginning. They have capital, they have cash, and I get to have a great whiskey for 3, 4, 5 years later. So the family actually says, what am I going to do with 240 bottles? I don't have that many friends. So what they did is they kept 20 bottles from themselves, yay, and they actually put 220 bottles online by www.irishmalts.com, and I was lucky enough to buy one of these, yay. So I opened mine up. I did that in my Irish whiskey, in my German Irish whiskey video just a moment ago. And I bet that if anyone has a bottle of this and they didn't open it up, but rather put it on an auction site, they're going to get 2 or 3 times the price I paid for this bottle. Because they're rare, they're exotic, they're ornaments, they're collector items. So I like Dingle. I've never been to Dingle Distillery yet. I want to go there one day. Let's see if I'll make that happen in 2020. And batch 1 was fabulous. Batch 2 was nice. Batch 3 was well. Batch 4 was rushed it, babies. I've had a lot of their single casks. I've had some mothers, I know, what was it? Daughters and sons. I had one. I had a which was one of 40 bottles. It was a little quarter cask. I had the Mr. Whiskey. I have the Palace Bar, which is, in my personal opinion, too sherry, too much. If I have a whiskey from a new distillery, I want to taste the aroma of the whiskey and not just of the barrel. And this really, really does a poor job of that. It's just too much of the sherry moment. And even if you dilute it down, it's still just sherry, 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 sherry. There was a bottle from MR Whiskey, Mr. Whiskey, Michael, the guy I actually know in the meanwhile. I've met him. I'll be interviewing him also soon again. And his wife actually had a sherry barrel and he had a bourbon barrel. He bottled the bourbon barrel and gave back the sherry barrel because it was just too intensive, not the whiskey that he wanted. I'm sure if he would have bottled it, he still would have made a whole lot of money here. All right, so, let's do the math real quick. 150 euros. It's 156, but who forgets? It's 220 bottles out there, so let's just say 200 bottles for the sake of making my math a little bit easier. So 200 times 150 is 30,000 euros. Now imagine half of this goes for taxes and for retail and so on. I do buy the bottle for 5,000 and I get 15,000 back. That's a pretty nice return on investment. The yield there is fabulous. And don't forget, I get 20 bottles all for myself. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that calculation is correct but I do know that most barrels do cost around 5,000. You pay another maybe three to get them bottled. You have to pay then the excise tax. You have to pay the VAT. You have to pay the shop to sell them and so on. But usually with around 50%, you're more or less covered with that. So not a bad investment if you can get someone to actually take that cask off your hands later on. And at the moment with the whiskey boom, especially with the Dingle whiskey boom, I'm sure you'll find a partner with www.irishmalts.com and or Celtic Whiskey or any other of the many whiskey groups, clubs in Ireland. All right, so I've given enough time in the glass. Batch number 1 was so fantastic. I got a Hawaiian punch moment, which I'm barely getting here. What I'm getting here is, I'm really kind of worried. Not worried, I'm just kind of, it says just sherry cask, it says bourbon cask here as well. I'm not sure if this was a first fill bourbon. If you look at the color, it's fairly light. Well, of course it's light versus a sherry. But I have the feeling, at least this is more like a second fill. So you have a bourbon in the States, and you fill it up the first time in Ireland, and you use it a third time. And I have the feeling that this was a second fill bourbon whiskey cask. Because a little bit in the nose, it kind of feels like an old Scotch. I've had some Glenkeith, 22 years old. I've had a, what was the other one I had? Wait a second, let's see if I remember. My nose says this here. It smells a little bit like a really old Scotch that's been in a second or third fill hogshead for 20 some years. And it's just Strathmill, exactly. It smells a little bit like that if I got my distillery correct here. Somewhat older, 20 some year old plus. It has a little bit of that. Reminds me a little bit of that, which is fantastic for an Irish whiskey. I mean, come on guys, this is beautiful. And then a little bit of that Hawaiian punch, a little bit of a fruit cocktail kicks in. So I'm going to nip at it because it's 59.8%, and if it's too strong, you're too weak, and that's in my case very, very true. Well, I've had a little bit of saliva in my mouth, and I was able to counterbalance that alcohol in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down to about 46%. Now I know all you cask strength freaks out there are going, Jason, wrong. Sorry, my whiskey, my glass, whatever I like. Because I have the feeling that this really opens up at 46%. It gets creamy, it gets vanilla, and then I get this wonderful Hawaiian punch moment. That's the true characteristic of a Dingle whiskey in my own opinion. And this is just fabulous. I'm actually going to give it 1 second. The nose doesn't really do it for me. It's more of a C plus on my nose. The same thing. I've had some Glenkeiths and some other things that have been 24-year-old Scotch whiskeys. That, okay, it's bourbon a little bit. It's an old bourbon cask. Taste it. Oh, okay. This has so much more to offer than that, in my personal opinion. So, and towards the middle, it just really pops with this fruit cocktail. Mango, star fruit, guave, pineapple, watermelon, pears, peaches, apricots, and those little red cocktail cherries. Nice. I gave it a B plus in my German video. I'm thinking about an A minus actually. With water, this can be one of my favorite whiskeys in the Irish world at the moment. This is fabulous. Value for money, 156, 169 euros, about $200 at the moment. I'm going to give this a solid C. Why is it a solid C? Well, try to get a bottle of this. They were sold out within 72 hours. Luckily, I was on the mailing list and I did get the little notice and it was, I want one, I want one, I want one. And I got one, luckily, and I was so happy that this was being, by the time it was in shipping, they were already all sold out. And that was just so quick, those 220 bottles that were actually offered for sale. Now over here, you don't notice, I'm a little bit of Dingle fanboy. I have the Palace bar, which I have mentioned. It's way too much sherry in there. Even when I dilute it down below 40%, I just get sherry. I get sherry, I get like type of molasses, a syrupy sherry moment. And that's a shame because that wonderful, wonderful tropical fruit Hawaiian punch moment is just lost in this. And yeah. Whoops. Yum. All right. So the old Canon Cask strength, absolutely a hit. A B++++, A minus. Value for money, total C. My question of the day is, the 2020 Whiskey Bible just came out, and Jimmy, I know him, he's Jimmy. Jim Murray actually crowned this as the best Irish whiskey for the second year in a row. 3 years ago, it was the 21-year-old from Red Best, so Middleton's doing something right. I totally agree. Now, the question of the day is, there was also from the Celtic Whiskey Shop, the Irish Whiskey Awards, and they crowned this, the Black Label, the Black Barrel from Jameson as best whiskey, I think under 30 euros. And I must really admit, this is one of the best whiskeys I've had at a decent price from Ireland for a very, very long time. So my question is not what is the best whiskey in the Irish whiskey world. For the people at the Irish Whiskey Awards, it was the 17-year-old Irishman single cask sherry from Welsh Whiskey, which I totally agree. I actually begged in German and in English Bernard Welsh to send some bottles of his single cask 17-year-old Irish whiskey to Germany, which he did. Thank you very much. But it goes for £100 euros plus. Usually 150. It makes its way over here to Germany. But this is something which is very, very affordable and which I can actually just stand behind and go, wow, this is a great whiskey, which I still haven't reviewed in German, funny enough. So what is your favorite whiskey under $30? Question of the day. Thank you very much. Please like, please subscribe, please tell others about this crazy guy over here in Germany, or Europe, actually tasting rare and exotic Irish whiskey, as well as many other countries. Thank you very much for watching. All the best. My videos usually come out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. See you soon. Bye-bye.